What's up, guys? So, this is a random road trip that we had taken in the monsoon a couple of years back, and the trip started from Bombay. We started specifically from Bandra, and we went all the way down till Kodai Canal, till Vata Canal in Tamil Nadu. It was a trip which spanned roughly around 14 days, that was 2 weeks in the month of July. It was a complete road trip that we had done in the Mahindra Thar. The trip started with us having no plan in mind. The only plan that we had was that we would keep driving down south till we actually got fed up and decided that it was enough, and then we would have to turn back. So the journey started in the monsoon. It was pretty grim. It was a trip that we knew was going to be marked with challenges of road, along with the monsoon weather, which is going to be unpredictable in the south. So on day one, we had decided to break journey in the Konkan, and that was the best case scenario, since the key plan for us was that we are not going to be driving in the night. It's only going to be daytime driving. So for us to drive in the daytime, our plan was to start every day in the morning by roughly 6 or 7 and take breaks along the way so that we could actually enjoy the journey, not just run through from one place to another, including stopping at spots that we felt would be really good to capture some content, along with get in and soak in the experience of what the place had to be. So now this was a trip that, like I mentioned, was for in the monsoon and without any blueprint or any kind of itinerary that we had to follow. The best part about this trip was that it had no limitations in terms of no rigidness about whether we had to go to a particular place or had prior bookings. Everything was done on the spot, and everything was going as per the vibe and the feel of what we had. Now, the biggest challenge that we faced on day one was deciding where to stay in the Konkan coast, because most of the places that we scouted online where we could stay ended up being a bummer, or even worse, they never really had good enough accommodation for us to stay the night over there. So that became a bigger challenge. But barring that, it was a pleasant experience because the roads were empty. Everything was pretty much laid back in terms of the fact that we were pretty much the only tourists driving down on this route for most parts of the journey. Considering it's the monsoon, not many people travel to the Konkan side. Like it was this, like look at this particular part in the video where we had to wait for the ferry since the bridge was under construction and they were not allowing vehicles to go. Only bikes were allowed, and that too they were jumping over a particular part and going there. So we ended up having to kill around at least half an hour over there, because the ferry, there was a single ferry which used to do both the sides journey, so going from one side to another side. So along the way, we did end up interacting with quite a few people, having keynotes of what we could do and what we could not do. And the biggest plus point of this was the fact that it wasn't raining when we started the journey. It was gloomy, it was overcast, but it was definitely not raining. The wait continued for us for a while, because it takes half an hour to go, then there's a waiting over there for roughly around 15 minutes, and then it will start back. So along the time, what better to do than to just randomly start clicking photographs and begin the journey with some content. And the content always gets more interesting when you find somebody who's a random stranger who's also interested in getting captured along the way. So this adds another element to the entire journey. So like you can look at this chap who's pretty much interested in getting his content taken. The best part about the Konkan is the fact that people are very friendly. Network is a bit up and down, like mostly 4G and 5G is unavailable in most places. We were fortunate enough that we had a combination of multiple networks, like we had Vodafone, Airtel, and Jio, so all three powering us. And after the entire trip, I will tell you which was the best network. But currently, in the Konkan, it was a mixture of all three that was getting us through. There were parts which had Vodafone, parts which had Airtel, and parts which had Jio, and there were certain parts which had no network at all. The most challenging part about driving in the Konkan is actually about navigating these steep roads. They're pretty steep and they are hairpin blind turns which come along the way. And if you look at the road, it's very, very narrow. So if you're overspeeding, you've got to be really careful, because if another vehicle is also coming overspeeding, it can be a real problem for you as a driver, regardless of how good your driving skills are. The scenery in the monsoon is breathtaking. There's lush greenery all over. You'll get to see a lot of waterfalls, a lot of paddy fields. You might find the odd local ST bus, that's the Maharashtra government bus, which is going along this journey. But overall, you're not going to be finding a lot of tourist spots. It is a journey for the traveler and less for the tourist. If you are someone who likes going into a random place where you can just get off, soak in, and make it your own tourist spot, then going to the Konkan is worth it. Otherwise, it is not at all something that you might like. Like, this is a random bridge where we stopped at just to click photographs, because with the river flowing and the greenery and a little bit of rain, it was something that was really amazing. It was something beyond what we could digest, and even cameras do not do justice to what it is. You can look at Kashish over here. He's really excited and thrilled by the fact that we found something which is so isolated, coming from a city like Bombay, where there's no way you'll find yourself with so much of time at a place so beautiful without having any other crowd, unfiltered crowd, like I would say. It is completely virgin and untapped. The roads are pretty tricky. You might find cattle along the way roaming. We reached a beach at the Konkan coast, thought that it would have a good vibe, but the vibe was pretty dead, and that's where. So at this particular spot is where we realized that we would actually have to find another place to be staying, because this wasn't entirely or even close to what we had pictured when we came here. This is a beach along the Konkan coast. It's near Dapoli and it's empty, but the vibe is not as good as what we thought it would be. There are no shacks close to the beach, nor are there any accommodation. And like you can see in this video, it is a black sand beach. It's not yet the white sand that you can associate yourself with when you're traveling to the Konkan coast. So the challenge with staying in such a place is that even though you'll find a cheap accommodation, it's not a vibe that you'll want, because anyways in the monsoon most of the time you got to spend in your room, and if you're not going to get a room which has what you're looking for, it's not worth it going there in the rains, because then it's all the more of a bummer. So all that we did was we just loitered on the beach. There's a actual road which will get your car to the beach, and people are driving also on the beach. That's the kind of pathway it is. And we found some friendly locals who were helping us get out of here and find a place which was more interesting, and would find something in terms of the vibe that we were looking for. So they suggested that we go to a place called Ladghar, which was roughly, I think, an hour away from where we were exactly. So the only way out of this place was to drive along the beach and exit from the beach itself, because that was the only way through this from getting so close to the beach. Once we hit the road again, this was pretty much one of the best views that we found all along the journey in the Konkan on day one. It was a mesmerizing view from a hilltop where you could actually see the entire coastline. We hit the road again because the light was fading and we did not really want to be driving after dark, and it was very important for us to find accommodation. So we had to skip pretty much a good part of the journey which had good views, but the plan was to catch it up on the return. So as we were driving, we found a place on Google Maps which claimed that they were open and they were beachfront, but there was no way to contact them. So the only way was to drive down over there and interact with them directly and get a place. So that's what we ended up doing. This is what the place looked like. It was at Ladghar beach, exactly beach facing, and like they mentioned online, it was open. And again, we were pretty much the only people staying over here, because in the monsoon very few people come there, and the fact that most people go to Malvan and Tarkali is the reason why they do not come to this place. The rooms over here were priced at around, I think, 2,500 for a night for an AC room with the beachfront. which I personally feel was a bit steep for the kind of the room they were, like the kind of room that it was. But there was no other option because this was the only beachfront facing place to stay for the night. So we took the room, and this place also offered us. They had food which was not included in the cost. We had ordered from the menu, so not at all a problem. But at least food and everything else was sorted over here. The rain started in the evening once we reached there, so we pretty much stuck into the room for the rest of the evening. And by the time we had reached it, the light had already started to fade. So my takeaways from the first day of traveling to the Konkan coast on our road trip to South India to reach Kodaikanal and Vattakanal was that the journey was all about, I would say, finding the correct place to stay, which was actually a challenge. But at the same time, we found a beach, Ladghar, which had a vibe, had everything. It was just the fact that it's still underdeveloped, and the fact that other than where you're staying, there are